So let us look again at these three possibilities of experience. The first possibility, the conventional perspective, in which we consider ourselves to be something, an object, a body, and a mind moving around in a world of objects and others in time and space. The position, I am something. The second position, we discover that we are not an object, not a thought or a feeling, a sensation or a perception. We are whatever it is that is aware of thoughts, feelings, sensations and perceptions. And whatever it is that is aware of all these is not itself a thing or an object. Hence the phrase, I am nothing, I am not a thing. I am just empty, aware presence. And the third possibility, in which we discover that our self, this empty, aware presence, is not just the background or the witness of our thoughts, sensations and perceptions, but it is closer than that, it is more than that, it is the substance or the reality of all these, just like the screen is the substance or reality of the image. In the first possibility, objects, and by objects I don't just mean physical objects, I mean thoughts, feelings, sensations, perceptions. In the first possibility, objects are considered to be real, and awareness is considered non-existent. In other words, it's not considered at all. In the second possibility, both objects and awareness are considered to be real. And in the third possibility, awareness is considered to be real, and objects, as they are normally conceived, are understood to be non-existent. The first is a position of ignorance, the second one of wisdom or understanding, the third one of intimacy or love. But the problem is, the underlying problem is the deep belief we have, and this belief outlives many years of non-dual exploration. This has been my experience. It is the belief that now it is I, the body, that is aware of my experience. That is the reason we have this problem. Because it seems now for all of us, including myself, that experience is perceived from the perspective of the body. I close my eyes, the sight of the room disappears. Therefore, it's so obvious, isn't it, that consciousness must be located behind the eyes. Because I see everything when I look in this direction, I see everything in front of me. When I close my eyes, everything in front of me vanishes. Therefore, the logical conclusion is consciousness is located in the body, behind the eyes. Hence the belief, it is I, the body, that is aware of my experience. And it is because of this deep feeling that it is I, the body, that is aware, as opposed to the understanding that it is I, awareness, that am aware, that we have this difficulty. If it is clear to us now that it is I, awareness, that is aware, and that we see the world as if from the perspective of the body, but that the awareness with which we experience the body and the world is not located in the body or the world, but the body and the world is located in awareness, then the question of awareness being aware of itself is just obvious. It is obviously awareness's primary experience to be aware of the experience of being aware. So we really have to, if there is a lingering belief, it is either body that is aware, then that belief will make it impossible to understand that awareness is aware of itself in the absence of objects. We have to realize first that it is now awareness that is aware of experience. It is not the body that is aware of experience. The body is experienced. It doesn't do the experiencing.
Rupert, thank you for that that guidance. It was very, very good. I seem to have a tantalising glimpse in this cycling between the three different positions of the undermining of the whole objectivity of experience. And I guess what I mean by that is if I see a sight or I hear a sound, then experience moves on. And then I can't say I heard a sound, because where is that sound now? It's now just a memory. And what there is just what's present right now. And the same then goes for a sight. And during that I experimented a bit with a thought, in as much as I think I have a thought, and then a few moments later another supposed individual thought comes along, and then where is the previous thought? That's then just a memory. And if I remember that thought, then the one I was thinking about is then gone. And it kind of implies that, well, if I can't have the two thoughts at once, or the two sounds at once, or the two sights at once, where does a thought or a sight start and stop? And the conclusion seems to be, well, it doesn't. There is, to use your terminology, there is just hearing, seeing, feeling, thinking, experiencing. And in that sense, because reflection on this seems to undermine the start and the beginning and the end, the sort of turning things into packets, it almost says, well, there are no actual individual objects. There is just a flow of this, all this stuff just flowing through and continually flowing through.
Keep going.
And then when you get down to, just for example, falling to sleep or going to sleep, it slows down and slows down and slows down and slows down. And then the content, there are no things left. I guess what I'm trying to feel into is that Advaita, not two things, but it almost feels like there's not even one thing.
Keep going.
There is just this experiencing of life, just taking ever-changing shapes all the way through, without start and without end.
Keep going down that road. No, you're absolutely right, and the reason I keep going is because your line of reasoning and your line of reasoning, which is based on your experience, is absolutely right. Just keep going in that line of reasoning, which is what Christian men are called higher reasoning, which means reasoning that is based on your actual experience, not reason that is based on belief. And allow it to take you right into the heart of, or the reality of experience. Yes, it's true. In the end, objectivity is completely undermined. But subjectivity is dependent on objectivity. Mm-hmm. If there's an object, there has to be a subject, and if there's a subject, there has, by definition, to be an object, because they're two sides of the same thing. So, to begin with, we think that all objects are got rid of, and we're just left with a subject. But as you rightly said, if there are not two things, there can't be one thing. What is that?
It felt just the trying to find a start and a beginning and an end of any particular thing. That's what really starts to shake it all up.
What is it that says that there is a start and an end of any particular thing? It's a thought that says that. But is that thought based on experience?
No.
Or belief? It's just based on belief. It's not, as you see, quite rightly, it's not based on our experience. Mm-hmm. Take even a thought. Just take any mundane thought and speak the thought out loud.
The yellow front door of my house.
Okay, the yellow front door. Okay, now start the sentence slowly.
Yellow.
Okay, now stop there. The yellow. Yeah? The beginning of the thought. Now where is the end of the thought? The yellow? Where is the end of the thought? It's non-existent. It's non-existent.
We've created a thing called a thought, and it's not there to be created.
That's where I'm going. Exactly.
Yeah.
In other words, when we say the yellow front door of my house has not yet come into existence.
Exactly.
And when we say yellow, the has gone out of existence. And the front door of my house has not yet come into existence. And when we say front, the yellow has disappeared. And door of my house has not yet come. So, what is a thought? Who says it's a thought? Who has ever experienced a thought as it is normally conceived to be?
It's an artificial chunk.
It's an artificial idea that doesn't describe the reality of our experience. It's a very useful idea. It's a necessary idea. It has its practical applications, but does it describe the reality of our experience? Do we experience something called a thought?
No.
Take even a word, yellow. Yeah. Where is the low?
Mm-hmm.
And when we come to the low, where is the yeah?
Mm-hmm. Is that the same as...
We go on, opening up our experience, opening up our experience, opening up our experience. What do we find there? What is truly experienced in the now? What can the mind say about it for sure? What is it?
What the mind can say about it for sure is it's here.
Yes, it is. I am. It is. There is being. There is presence.
And just in addition, I felt when we'd opened our eyes and I was looking around the room. That's a sight. But then that is another sight. But that one doesn't exist anymore. And it felt to me that was the same as the idea of sounds and thoughts. It's artificially
Yes, exactly.
compartmentalizing.
So when you have these apparently two different sites, which, as you rightly say, are not really two separate objects. So when the first apparent sight disappears and the second one appears, what has really disappeared and what has really appeared?
Just the label.
Exactly. But what has really disappeared and appeared? In other words, the label, mind says, one thing disappeared, one thing ended, and a new thing came into existence. In other words, a new thing started or appeared. That's what the label says. But what actually happened? What really disappeared or appeared?
Nothing.
Exactly. That which is never ceases to be. That which is not never comes into existence. That which is the reality of sight number one, what it is really made of, doesn't disappear when that sight seems to disappear. And a new something doesn't come into existence when the second sight seems to appear. Actually, the same thing, we can call it a thing, is present throughout. Not present throughout time, but ever present. That which is, that which truly is, that which our experience is truly made out of, never ceases to be. It doesn't come in and out of existence. It wasn't born, it's not moving and changing, it's not evolving, and it's not going to die. And that which is not, the thought, or the sight, or the sound, all these things that thought labels, that which is not, these things that have no real existence in their own right, they never come into existence. They never truly exist as they are normally conceived. The thought, the object, the sound, the sight. These are all labels that thought superimposes onto experience, that seems to define specific objects like thoughts or sights or tastes that come and go. But actually the reality, what is real in all of those apparent things, doesn't come and go. Objectivity is completely undermined. But subjectivity is dependent on objectivity. If there's an object, there has to be a subject, and if there's a subject, there has, by definition, to be an object, because they're two sides of the same thing. So, to begin with, we think that all objects are got rid of, and we're just left with a subject. But as you rightly said, if there are not two things, there can't be one thing. What is that? And that's why it's in the context of a conversation like this that we understand, for instance, why some sages say nothing ever happens. What does that mean? Nothing ever happens. But when we're speaking like this, right at the heart of experience, from the point of view of what truly is, from that point of view, which is the only real point of view, nothing ever happens. For the screen, nothing ever happens. It's incomprehensible for the separate self to try to understand such a statement. But from the point of view of awareness, it's so obvious. It's so simple. I mean, really to understand that in your experience, and then to your home, and then to live the implications of that. To think, to align your thoughts, your feelings, your activities, your relationships, with that experiential understanding.
in my experience, there's awareness without boundary, and then there's the torch, you call it, the focusing of awareness. Could you speak to that, the difference and how that occurs from this full awareness, this fullness, to this focus on pointing it in directions with intention or attention, from awareness to attention? It's a focusing.
Awareness never actually focuses. It's always wide open in all directions. It's only when an apparent object comes into existence, an object that is singled out from the rest of the totality, and that singling out creates what we call the object. It's only when that takes place that there seems to be this focus of attention onto an object. But awareness never really knows an object. Thought thinks that it knows an object. But awareness doesn't know a multiplicity and diversity of objects and selves. Awareness has to first take the shape of mind before experience can be divided up into objects and selves. Once that has taken place, then we can give one of those objects or one of those selves attention. In other words, it is thought that abstracts from the seamless intimacy of all experience. Seamless because it's not made up of parts, and intimate because it's this close to awareness. It is thought that abstracts objects and selves, separate objects and separate selves, from that seamless intimacy. But in order to do that, in order to abstract an object from this seamless intimacy, we have to first overlook our true nature of awareness and imagine that we are a subject. So when this simple knowing of our own being is overlooked, at that moment we, awareness, seem to collapse or contract into a separate subject. And at that moment, a world of objects and others come into apparent existence. That subject can then pay that object attention. But awareness is not the subject of experience, although sometimes as a halfway stage we talk about the witnessing presence of awareness, I, the subject, knowing the objects of the body-mind. That's a legitimate halfway stage, and we'll go there sometimes this week. But awareness never actually becomes the witnessing subject of a multiplicity and diversity of objects. The subject and the object, they arise together. They're created in thought's imagination. It's thought that divides this seamless intimacy into parts, abstracts a self that knows and an object that is known. It's thought that says that knowing takes place in here and the existence of the object takes place out there. But for awareness, knowing and being are the same thing. In other words, awareness never experiences things as things. It knows things much more intimately than that. It knows everything as itself. It doesn't know a world as a world. It knows the apparent world as itself. In other words, from awareness's point of view, it never comes in contact with anything other than itself. It only knows itself. However, once thought has abstracted a separate self, once thought has overlooked our true nature, and has imagined instead that we are a separate, limited self, then what we are just inhabits this little corner of experience called my body. And everything and everyone else are projected outside and become objects and others. And from that moment on, we live our lives based on the belief and the feeling that what I am is a separate, limited self, moving around in a world of objects and others. But there's only one thing that that separate self truly longs for, and that is happiness or peace. All separate selves seek happiness or peace alone. What that separate self is truly seeking is to dissolve as a separate self, to be returned to its real self, to be unveiled. That's what the separate self spends its life seeking: its own death, seeking its own disappearance. Everything the separate self does in the outside world is orientated only to finding the knowing of its own being, finding its own being as it really is. This dimensionless, objectless, transparent awareness. Awareness never really knows an object. Thought thinks that it knows an object. But awareness doesn't know a multiplicity and diversity of objects and selves.